Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hey everybody, I got a video here from the I Hit Girls, and let's take a look at that.
Convicted felon president of the United States of America is weak. He's not strategic. He's impulsive. He has very little idea of how politics, especially international relations, diplomacy work. Benjamin Netanyahu knew this. He has been wanting to attack Iran for 3 decades. He did it. And then dog walked Trump right into it. And now the United States is involved in a war in the Middle East after we knew what a disaster it was under George W. Bush when the United States of America propagandized the entire world, lied to the entire world, and went into the Iraq war. Trillions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of lives lost, absolute disaster. And here we are again. And then now this president is surrounded by evil people who gaslight and propagandize the American public. None other does this as well as little smoky-eye sociopath J.D. Vance, the pathetic vice president of the United States. Play this clip.
And the second thing is, Kristen, I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives. So this is not going to be some long, drawn-out thing. We've got in, we've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years, and that is what the president has set out to do. Simple.
Okay, number one, does he think we're stupid, that we think Donald Trump is smart? I'm not saying that I think George W. Bush was smart, because I didn't then and I don't now. And I think Dick Cheney and all of them, all of the hawks surrounding him, the neocons, knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were lying, just like Benjamin Netanyahu knows he's lying. But here's the thing. If we are going to spend United States taxpayer money to get involved in a war in the Middle East, the evidence that there is a direct threat to the United States of America has to be crystal clear, concrete. Congress needs to see it. The American public needs to see what can be seen for, permitting national security issues. But we haven't seen that. There has been zero threshold met here. And just as an armchair political commentary person, I see exactly what happened. Benjamin Netanyahu knows the United States of America is as weak as it could ever be, and tons of politicians in the United States Congress and the United States Senate, both parties are compromised by AIPAC lobbyists, and we are getting propagandized left, right, up, down, and center. And nothing about this helps the cause of anti-Semitism, which is incredibly real. None of this helps the cause of democracy. Like, we're supposed to take this argument to Iran. You guys are cruel. You guys are terrible. And they are. But let's remember, the president of the United States of America asked his Secretary of Defense in his first term if he could shoot American citizens in the legs. So it's not like we have the moral high ground to go and preach this great democracy where kids get shot in school. American arrogance is so out of control. And for these morally depraved fuckers to deliver it is just so rich and so hypocritical.
I completely agree with you. And I look at this, when I first saw that this had happened, I thought, okay, so you have the complete flop of his birthday parade. Then you have Netanyahu stroking his ego. Then he comes out with his 2 weeks. And now they're trying to say it was subterfuge. What I think it was is he saw the backlash and everybody calling him a chicken and saying he wouldn't do it. And Trump chickens out on everything. Tariffs, Iran. This to me was him showing him, I'm a big boy. I can do it. I do not believe for a second that he was surrounded by experts, nor do I think he gives a shit. He wanted to show brute strength by the United States. Consequences be damned.
Yes, and I also think that this was a very strategic play by Benjamin Netanyahu.
Absolutely.
I mean, he absolutely created this and walked the United States of America into it, because I've read reports that Israel's military supplies, obviously, are quite thin after they bombed the shit out of civilians in Gaza for 2 years with pretty much impunity to American politicians, which is abhorrent and disgusting. And it just the war crimes. And the fact that we're supporting a war criminal right now, the United States of America is supporting Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a war criminal, who kills journalists, bombs hospitals, kills children, kills all sorts of civilians, and then starves the civilian population, starves them out. And this is our ally, and we're going to go preach American values around the world. Give me a break. But another evil, just pathetic person surrounding Trump and all of this decision-making is complete schizophrenic little Marco Rubio. Play the clip.
Are you saying there that the United States did not see intelligence that the Supreme Leader had ordered weaponization?
That's irrelevant. I think that question being asked on the media, that's an irrelevant question.
No,
they have
that is
everything
the
they need
key
to build
point
a weapon.
in U.S. intelligence assessment. You know
No,
that.
it's not.
Yes, it was.
No, it's
that
not.
The political decision had not
I know
been
that better
made.
than you know that, and I know that that's not the case.
But
You don't
I'm
know-
asking
you
you
don't
whether
know
the
what you're
order
talking
was
about.
given.
And the people who say that, it doesn't matter if the order was given. They have everything they
I mean, this is just pathetic. This is worse than when Colin Powell went to the United Nations and lied to the entire world. He's saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No, it's not. Acting like he's in junior high school. Meanwhile, our taxpayer dollars are going to support this insane war as though we're some beacon of freedom and we're some beacon for the world to look at us. Look how great we are. And give me a break. Donald Trump campaigned on defeating the enemy from within, and now he wants to defeat Iran. This is so schizophrenic. These are very, very unserious people with very, very serious jobs who have annihilated the expertise around them. And this is just, as a mother who has 2 sons right now, to see just how flippantly they do this with the support of all the pro-life Republicans and the pro-life evangelicals is just breathtaking hypocrisy and American arrogance at its core.
I completely agree. I mean, we are taking people off the street without due process and sending them to concentration camps. We're hardly the beacon of the world in government. And I just want to say, Marco Rubio has been on the Foreign Intelligence Committee. He knows what expertise is. He knows the realistic and diplomatic consequences of something like this. And it is obvious to me he did not stand in the breach for this impulsive nutball that's unable to control his emotions.
And, you know, you have like people like Tulsi Gabbard, who said on the record very clearly that Iran did not have a nuke. And it was reported by Time magazine, Trump's public rebuke of Tulsi Gabbard's statement on Iran. That's one headline. And if you really want to dig into how the American public is propagandized and spun, download Ground News, because here's how the right reports the same story. Tulsi Gabbard's clarification on Iran after Trump's second rebuke in a week. And so you have everybody in the United States that are in their silos where they get propaganda from one side, they get facts. If you happen to find American media, which there are some that fact check. And that's why Ground News is something that we use every single morning when we prepare for these episodes, so that we understand the mental gymnastics that people on the right are going through, possible spin on the left, and then what are the facts? And we get that every morning from Ground News.
What's so nice about Ground News is you don't have to question if what you're reading is factual, because it will tell you high factuality, low factuality, mixed factuality. It's such an important tool right now.
So join us by going to groundnews.com/IHIP to get 40% off the Ground News Vantage plan that we use every day. They're subscriber funded, and my favorite part is that they are female founded. By subscribing, you're not only getting a tool we all need today, you're also supporting our work here at iHip News. That's ground, GROUND news.com/IHIP. All right, here is another instance of J.D. Vance gaslighting the American public, and I think it's really pathetic. Play the clip.
President Trump trust the U.S. intelligence community and its assessments?
Oh, of course we trust our intelligence community, but we also trust our instincts.
Okay, first of all, his boss, President Taco Tits, he stood in Helsinki in 1.0 and defended Vladimir Putin and said he did not trust the United States intelligence. So the fact that we have these people out here trying to gaslight us when the record shows the contrary, the record with Donald Trump always shows it's America last. Always colluding with colluding with Israel to bomb Iran is not in America's best interest because it's all based on lies and propaganda by Benjamin Netanyahu. Standing on the stage in Helsinki and bashing United States workers and intelligence that have been penetrated by Russia and taking the side of Vladimir Putin is America last. This man doesn't give a shit about the United States of America and leaving his stamp on a place that's going to grow and prosper. He only myopically sees his ego and then sub things under the ego. If I'm richer, does that make me feel better? If Vladimir Putin thinks I'm cool, does that make me feel better? Bending over for Benjamin Netanyahu so that he can praise me. And don't think for a second either that Benjamin Netanyahu isn't saying shit like this to Trump because they all have a psychological profile. Don't think for a second that he isn't saying stuff like, here's the thing, if we get involved in these wars and we actually do a regime change, then you'll be the one American president that actually brought peace in the Middle East. Obama couldn't do it. George W. Bush couldn't do it. Clinton couldn't do it. They all tried, but you're the one that can do it. And if we're in a war, Americans rarely vote against a wartime president. So you'll be able to subvert Congress and the constitutional amendment. You'll be able to stay in power. I just said that in less than a minute. And that is all it takes for the president of the United States, who is a convicted felon, clearly demented, to be dog-walked with American taxpayer money while our country is really suffering. You have people, U.S. citizens with cancer getting deported, kids getting deported because nobody's checking anything because Stephen Miller, another psycho surrounding Donald Trump, it just, furiously masturbates anytime he sees anybody with brown skin getting locked up and drug out of the country.
You're completely right. And I also think that Trump has something that no other American president has had, is that he doesn't give a shit what civilians are killed in Iran. He doesn't give a shit about the personal lives that are cost of American soldiers because he's made it extremely clear that he thinks they're suckers and losers. So there's not a modicum of empathy in that man.
That's exactly right, which is very dangerous with him colluding with dictators. And in history, every time you see dictators and autocrat wannabes like Benjamin Netanyahu, like Vladimir Putin, like Donald Trump, every time they collude together, it leads to war. And here we are. And make no mistake about it, Benjamin Netanyahu is every bit as bad as Donald Trump. He's just smarter. Mm-hmm. He's savvier. All right. And our last thing, please put up this post from the convicted felon president of the United States, Little Taco Tits. Pop this up. He says it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA. And I'm just like, I guess are his supporters this dumb that now they're just the core cult, are now they just going to jump on? And here's the thing. I've seen on corporate news, I've seen everybody say they throw gay people off the top of buildings. Well, you know what? The Iranian regime is horrible for gay rights. But you know, the state that we live in right here, we played in an episode about 2 weeks ago, a guy who works for the city of Oklahoma City, who's a Southern Baptist preacher who to his congregation said, all gays need to be executed, lined up and executed. And he said this to thunderous applause and amens to the congregation. So religious fanaticism, whether it's Islamic, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Christianity, is always a problem. And we need to work on the religious fundamentalists who wrote Project 2025 in the United States of America, which is the most regressive, anti-democratic document that has ever been proposed in the United States of America, which is getting instituted line by line by line by line. And we're going to go with our American arrogance and say, oh, guess what? America's so safe. Kids can go to school here and not have to go through metal detectors. Lie. This is just so fucking arrogant, incompetent, and breathtakingly dangerous. That's all we have for this episode. We'll see you all later today.
Hot one today. It's up in the high 80s in Maine. 88, 89 degrees. Could be even hotter tomorrow. So, you know, I don't know about, you know, you guys watching here, but have you noticed now how all of a sudden MAGA is all pro-war? Or at least they're sounding like they are. Very unusual, I would say. You know, they're all like, it's a cult. Whatever Trump says goes, okay? Whatever they believe, it has to filter. It's got to be approved by Trump. If he doesn't echo what they echo, then they change. But look, everybody is pointing out here the similarities between what happened to the run-up to the Iraq War and how we've been played again to the run-up to Iran. Now, for you young people out there who weren't around during that time, you wouldn't understand just how insane this country got after 9/11 and how we wanted blood, okay? And it didn't matter so much who was going to take the beating for what happened. It just needed to happen, okay? That was how we were back then, all right? And when it come out afterwards that Iraq didn't have anything that was said by Colin Powell and all these other people, they were saying that they got weapons of mass destruction, when they didn't find any of that, okay, people felt really pissed. They were betrayed. They felt like, well, you know, they said they had them, and now they don't. Of course, the UN already knew that, just like they knew what we know about Iran. The UN had been sending inspectors into that country for years before the Iraq War, and they made sure that they didn't have any chemical weapons and shit like that, or nukes. So they were trying to enlighten the Bush administration about that, and they were just not hearing it. And anybody who was reporting in the newspapers that there was no evidence to support Bush's accusation, they were, you know, immediately shunned. Some of these people, you know, were threatened, and they were making sure that the public only heard their side, you know, the Republican side of this fucking thing. Okay. So yes, not every American was behind this war. Some people actually listened to what the UN was saying and said, well, look, they said there isn't any. And we actually had, you know, people in our government, a few people that were also saying the same thing, okay? And so we ended up in war anyway, and it cost us another 20 years after that fighting the war on terrorism. And as somebody had said back then, you can't fight terrorism. Terrorism is not an army, it is a tactic. You can't wage war on a tactic. Okay, terrorism will happen no matter what. So here we fast forward over 20 years later, 25 years later, whatever, and Bush's actions have been echoed here by the Trump administration, and they were doing the same goddamn thing. And the thing of it is, though, is America is not really believing Trump, because Trump spent so much time lying about everything that nobody really believes anything he says anymore now. Okay, and even though he's got a sycophants hitting Fox News and echoing Trump's concerns, okay, they're still not believing it. Over 80-something% of Americans do not want this war to happen in Iran, and only about 15% of MAGA or Republicans are supporting Trump here in this measure. Okay, so that tells you right there, you know, there's not enough Americans here that really want this thing to happen. But who does? Who the fuck would rally for a goddamn war for another country? I mean, you know, come on. This isn't Ukraine. This is not a country that was attacked, you know, arbitrarily, you know, out of the clear blue, you know, and, you know, no. This was Israel, who had started the year, okay, being the, you know, Netanyahu being a dictator wannabe, just like Trump. Okay, we started the year like that, and guess what happened? They got paid back for what they've been doing, for what they did in Gaza. They got paid back for it. Okay, while everybody here in America was pissed off at Israel, Netanyahu, for what they were doing. Okay, they got, you know, Netanyahu got repaid for what he done. All right, and we had no business getting in the middle of this with Israel. Just because we're allies doesn't mean we have to agree with every fucking thing they do. No, we got a conscience. If Israel's doing something wrong, then we tell them, don't do it. Okay? Even the UN was trying to put a stop to it. But no, Netanyahu didn't want to listen. So he walked his country right into a slaughter. And now that he's bitten off more than he can chew, he's crying to Trump to come and help him, bail him out. Okay? That's what this is about. And Trump, who at the time, oh, well, you know, I don't know if we're going to attack. I don't know. Well, Netanyahu, like the girl said, they play him like a harp from hell. He flatters them. I mean, he gives them, you know, praises him, gives a speech basically on TV, all in English. Okay, so you know he's directing his comments to the United States, because normally he wouldn't speak in English if he was doing something like that to address his country. No, this was meant for Trump's ears and his ears alone. Okay, and what we aren't getting here is the truth, and that's Trump is being played. Okay, he's being flattered, being given compliments, you know, and I would imagine that, you know, for weeks they've been colluding, the two of them, on what they were going to do. I can't believe that, you know, this just happened overnight. I think, in a big way, I think this was already planned probably a month or two ago, you know, that they were going to hit Iran. You know, I don't know. But like I said, what's happening here is we're being, you know, our government is being used here by Israel, and we're going to be dragged into an extended war in that region once again. Okay, now that goes against what people want in this country. The majority, and that includes some Republicans, don't want to see another fucking 20-year war or more. But the thing of it is that this kind of a war could easily spread to engulf other countries, which could lead to a world war. All right, because you got China, you got Russia, that are allied with Iran, and let's be honest here. Even if Iran was making nukes, okay, it doesn't really matter, because if they're not making nukes, they can still get nukes. All they got to do is, you know, call one of their allies, and I'm sure they'd be happy to, you know, lodge a nuke or something to an American target. Okay, they don't need to make nukes. They got all the fucking allies they need to really deliver a hell of a punch to their enemies. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what we bombed, okay? Because even though we didn't do a very good job of bombing whatever the fuck we was trying to hit, okay? All right, it doesn't really matter if it was destroyed or not, because at the end of the day, they can still get nukes from their allies. Who's going to stop them? Well, that might include other countries, which means if other countries get behind this war, taking a side, this easily could involve a lot of countries. Now, look, Iran has shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which is going to increase. But what do we get about? Well, 20 to 25% of our oil comes through there. Okay, now I can't figure the math here on how much that's going to increase gas prices here, but it's going to be a hike. Okay, it's going to be a hike, and it's going to feel like, you know, like the 1970s again, when we had gas lines at the pumps. They just they just got I don't know, like 10 oil tankers had to make a U-turn yesterday to head back to port. Okay, they say that strait is probably the most heavily armed strait in the world because the whole world depends so much on that oil going through there. So it won't just affect the United States, it's going to affect all our allies that we had, thanks to Trump, but it's going to affect everybody. All right, now how long do you think these countries are going to sit back and do nothing over this and not try to put a stop to it? How long do you think they're going to last? That's my question. Of course, I can't answer that, but I can tell you right now, the countries are already paying high gas prices as it is because of inflation. But when you couple this on top of the inflation, no, it's not going to look good. And you know, other countries who are pissed off at us for having gotten involved in this war are going to be forced to join it in order to save their own skins, basically. So this, like I said, easily, yes, very easily, we could slip down the slope and end up in a global war here. And it's not going to be pretty. Now, considering that this war in Ukraine has decimated a lot of Russia's military, what do you think their first thing is going to do to use against the rest of the world? Nukes, because that's all they got left. Okay? They're going to instantly use the nuclear option because they've used a lot of their assets up already in Ukraine. They had a shitty military to begin with, and all they got left is some old fucking nukes still in their silos. I mean, how many of those will still launch? We don't know. But the fact is, you know, even one can do a lot of damage. So, if Russia gets involved, I mean, we can expect that nukes will be flying through the air, and then when they launch, we launch, everybody launches, and then that's it, game over. Okay? So this is how not to lead a country into a fucking conflict. This is how you don't fucking escalate matters to the point where they cannot be recovered. There ain't enough peacekeepers to dial this back. Okay? There just ain't enough. So remember how Trump and Doge cut benefits for veterans and stuff like that? Doesn't that seem like the worst possible thing to do, the timing of it? Just a month or two before we go into this big war. Now, when we have more veterans, they're not going to be able to get away with budget cuts for the Veterans Administration. They're going to need to reinstate all that they had cut, and then we'll probably have to have more. Because if we're looking at another extended conflict that could cost a lot more lives than the Desert Storm did, okay, if we're going to have another extended conflict like that, another war on terror, because believe me, we are going to be hit with terrorism in this country, and we're going to have race riots here, you know, where people are going to be going after anybody that looks Muslim, Okay, we're going to go through all that shit again. Okay, all that shit we went through, we're going to go through it all over again. Okay, so we're going to have a big fucking problem in this country in the days to come. I'm sorry to keep compounding on bad news here, but Jesus, I mean, how can I sugarcoat this? You know, I've been around long enough to know how this country is and how people living in it are. Okay, and it's not good. None of this is going to be a good ending. There's not going to be a happy ending to any of this shit, okay? I really don't know what the hell to think, except I wish Congress would do something. I really do. I wish Congress would, for once, do what it's supposed to do, what they were mandated to do as an entity. Now, on a personal note, I got to tell you all, I don't feel much like celebrating the 4th of July this year. I really, really don't. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks so, okay? I really don't feel like it. I think that what the 4th of July stands for no longer exists. Because what we've done is we brought back the very thing we fought to get out of this country. We didn't want, you know, British rule over us. We wanted to be our own country. But we replaced that now with being ruled by an oligarchy run by a wealthy madman. How was that any different? You know, we've been goaded into a war that was not of our doing, that we don't want. And that goes against the grain of what this country's about. We, the people, are supposed to be the ones to decide our nation's fate. Instead, we got other people deciding what our country should do because they manipulated our president. So, are we a nation of Israel? Is Netanyahu really our president? Because, hey, he easily got our president to do what he wanted. I thought we hated Netanyahu. Well, we did when Biden was president. Okay? When Joe Biden was president and Netanyahu was trying to get Joe Biden to get involved in his fight there with in Gaza, Biden said no, hell no. And Netanyahu was pissed. Because he figured, well, this guy's not going to follow my shit. He's too smart for that. So, he bided his time. I mean, look, for 30 fucking years this guy tried to get us into this fight. Okay? And the right idiot came along and bang, here we are. Not even a year into his presidency. Okay? And already, talk about weak. Jesus Christ, we've never had such a weak president. Okay, I mean, we're supposed to be our own nation here. No other country should be convincing us to get involved with their mistake. And Israel made this mistake. They put it on themselves. It started with him being, Netanyahu being elected into that office, president, whatever, in his country. And him getting his nation involved in a fucking genocidal war. Okay, that's on him. And even the people at the time in Israel didn't like him. He was he was corrupted and everything. Okay, they didn't want anything to do with the guy. So for MAGA to sit here and clap and applaud and, oh yeah, let's join Israel, when last year they were all against Netanyahu. Okay, now they're playing his tune. Now they're following eagerly behind Trump, who's standing behind Netanyahu, and he's running our country. So the 4th of July, my friends, doesn't mean anything now. Okay, it's just a holiday of a bygone era that really doesn't apply to today's America. Today's America is not existing the way it was meant to. Okay, we got a dictator here for a president. He's not really a president, because if he was, he would listen to the rule of law. He wouldn't have ran for president. He would have been disqualified because he's a criminal. He wouldn't be running the country and shitting on the Constitution at the same time. He wouldn't be ignoring the courts. He's doing everything he can to not be an American president. So, why should he or anybody celebrate the 4th of July under the circumstances? We have to fight that all over again now. The reason we fought that whole war for independence, we got to fight that all over again now. And it's going to have to start on the fucking streets, because Congress is crickets. Okay? Sure, they came out yesterday and they condemned what Trump did by bombing over there, but that's just words. Nobody in this country likes just words. We like action. That's what we are. We don't like losers, we like winners. And right now, Congress is just a big fat L. Okay? That's what they are. They're a whole bunch of losers. And nobody cares what Congress thinks anymore, because they're not doing anything. They're not standing up for us anymore. Okay? That's why I say this fight is going to end up on the streets. Because when they're not listening to us, and the Senate's not listening to us, and the courts aren't listening to us, that leaves it up to us to fucking do the job for them. And that's the only way this ends. Okay? It's not going to be done nice. Trump being removed from the White House is not going to be done in a civilized fashion. It can't be. Because civility went right out the fucking window when he got elected president. Okay? We got a taste of that on January the 6th. We saw what civility means to this man and his clan. It means zilch. So, we have to do what the Constitution allows it to happen. In this situation where tyranny is in control of our country, we have to, as a citizen, revolt. We have to. Okay? I'm sorry. Nobody wants to have to get involved in that. But you know what? We don't get to pick the time or the place. We had that chance to dodge this fucking bullet. We did last year, and now you guys are finding out I was right. We didn't dodge that bullet. It hit us square in the head, and now we're fucked. And the only way we can undo this mess is a revolt. That means force Trump's hand. That means get him to get the whole fucking military involved in putting down a goddamn riot or whatever. That means he's going to be stretched beyond his limits. Because we're going to be invested in fighting over and against Iran, who's going to have our military against the wall, okay? And he's going to be fighting a war right here at home where the civilians are going to be uprising against government as we know it, okay? That's where this leads to, everybody, okay? I mean, it's just, that's why I say the 4th of July, it doesn't mean anything anymore. It really doesn't. And so I don't feel really like I should be out there celebrating or watching fireworks or doing all that stuff. I don't fucking see it. It feels like it's wrong. And, you know, like I said, I'm not the only one that feels this way. I've read a lot of comments on a lot of different websites, and the sentiment is very clear. There's very few people in MAGA saying anything, okay? They might be putting thumbs down on a lot of things, but they ain't saying nothing. They just don't like what's being said, but in their heart, they probably know it's the truth. But they just don't want to fucking, they don't want to read it, they don't want to hear it, okay? But guess what? Your fate is going to come knocking on your door. Whether you stand up to it or not, you're going to be dragged into this, okay? So if I was you, I'd pick a side now while you can, because if you can't, all right, you're going to be one of those who fall, okay, in the ensuing conflict that's to come. And like I said, it's better to be on the winning side. I mean, I feel like, you know, hey, we know what the winning side is, and it's not the government, okay? The government as we knew it is gone. It went out the door with Joe Biden. When he left, that government went right with him. We have a different kind of government now, and it's not a very nice one. And that's the government we have to overthrow. We have to bring it down, because it's run by a bunch of criminals and misguided misfits and weak-minded individuals, and they can't do anything. The system that was in place to correct this measure on its own in a civilized fashion has been neutered. Okay? It's been neutered. So it's not there for us anymore. So like I said, you know, this is where we are, and it's each one of us is going to have to make a choice. We're going to have to. Okay, there's not going to be any room for people having sudden religious conversions and shit like that. Okay, you're just going to have to stand up, and you know, otherwise they're going to be forced into it, and it's going to be a nightmare. You know. All right, I'll talk to you later.